Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur, coming up in the next 1 hour. As US presidential fight rages on, Harris accuses Trump of demeaning the office of the president, while Trump keeps focus on illegal immigration. Israel begins bombing Hezbollah's banks and other financial infrastructure as Hezbollah targets adversaries' military bases. World's biggest nature protection conference begins in Colombian city of Cali. UN chief urges investment to safeguard Earth's biodiversity. And in sports, New Zealand lifts Maiden ICC Women's T20 World Cup title, beats South Africa by 32 runs. With the US presidential election little more than 2 weeks away, the Democratic candidate Kamala Harris, in an interview to a news channel, used harsh words for her rival Donald Trump. She said that Trump demeans the office of president because of the words he often uses and his use of coarse language. Meanwhile, Democrat Kamala Harris visited the churches in Georgia, participated in 2 worship services outside of Atlanta as part of her campaign. She will campaign on Monday with Republican former Representative Liz Cheney. Early voting has begun in more than half of the US states. The latest polls suggest Harris has a small lead nationally, but they are neck to neck in the key battleground states. Both candidates were scrambling for votes in the most competitive states, with Harris appealing to early voters in Georgia and Trump campaigning in Pennsylvania. At a town hall in Lancaster, Trump said that he will fix the border almost immediately.
I have the tattoo.
Here we go.
I have the tattoo, the portrait tattoo.
Earlier, Donald Trump visited a McDonald's outlet in Philadelphia and tried working at the French fries station and drive-through window. Trump said the McDonald's visit was intended in part as a jab at Harris. Earlier on Sunday, Trump went after Harris, calling her a threat to democracy and using offensive words to describe her job as vice president. US Vice President Kamala Harris turned 60 years and she celebrated her birthday by visiting 2 churches on the campaign trail in Georgia. And for a change, she heard good words from her rival Trump as a birthday wish. Members of the congregation at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Georgia wished happy birthday to Kamala Harris. Harris is in Georgia to court early voters before the November 5th election. She will also speak at Divine Faith Ministries International in Jonesboro, just south of Atlanta, where she plans to encourage worshippers to exercise their voting rights. Republican nominee and her rival Donald Trump wished her a happy birthday as she turned 60, but said that US President Joe Biden prefers him over Harris.
It's her 60th birthday, so I want to wish her a happy 60th birthday. Right? No? No, happy birthday. And many more, and I mean it, so, you know, I do mean it, actually. I believe that Joe Biden likes me more than he likes Kamala. And who would think that?
Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk rallied solo for former US President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, urging people to vote in the key swing state of Pennsylvania. Musk gave a $1 million check to an attendee at the rally, which was hosted by America PAC, a political action group of Tesla. Musk is promising to give $1 million each day to someone on random basis who signs his online petition. To be eligible for the $1 million, petition signers must be a registered voter and live in one of the 7 swing states. Musk has increasingly supported Republican causes and this year became an outspoken Trump supporter. Trump in turn has said that if elected, he would appoint Musk to head a government efficiency commission. Also, Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Joe Shapiro called on law enforcement to investigate Elon Musk for his promise to give away $1 million each day until the election day. Israel has intensified its military campaigns both in Gaza and Lebanon days after killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. Though his death had raised hopes of an opening for ceasefire negotiations to end more than a year of conflict, but in further escalation, Israel has begun bombing Lebanese branches of an association accused of financing Iran-backed Hezbollah. Hundreds of Beirut residents fled their homes late on Sunday with multiple explosions heard across the Lebanese capital. 11 strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs, many of them targeting Al-Qad al-Hassan. Other strikes hit the association in Lebanon's eastern Bekaa Valley and in the country's south. There was no immediate information on what caused the blasts or further details of any casualties. The Hezbollah-linked financial institution has more than 30 branches across Lebanon, including 15 across central Beirut and its suburbs. An Israeli military spokesperson earlier issued a warning to leave infrastructure belonging to the Hezbollah Al-Qad al-Hassan Association.
We will attack a large number of targets in the coming hours and further targets during the night. In coming days, we will also expose how Iran has financed the terror activities of Hezbollah and used civilian institutions, associations and NGOs as cover for their terror operations. We will attack them during the night and we will update in due course on the outcome in coming days.
A strike had landed near Beirut's airport, which is the main entry point of humanitarian assistance to the country and a major evacuation hub for those fleeing the conflict. A plane from Dubai landed in Beirut's international airport in the early hours of Monday, about 30 to 40 minutes after huge blasts rang out in the vicinity of the airport. The smoke rising from those blasts was still visible as ME-429 from Dubai was landing. Soon after, Hezbollah said it had downed an Israeli Hermes 450 drone on Sunday, without saying where. The Iran-backed group also said it had fired several rocket salvos at the Israeli troops across the border without providing any information. As Israel-Hamas conflict crosses 1 year since October 7th last year, officials, diplomats and other sources in the region say Israel will keep its offensive against regional enemies to shield its borders and ensure its rivals cannot regroup. Sources also say that Israel is preparing to retaliate against an Iranian missile barrage earlier this month, though Washington has pressed it not to strike Iranian energy facilities or nuclear sites. Meanwhile, in Gaza, rescuers were still recovering people from the rubble after an Israeli strike on northern city of Beit Lahia, where Israel says its troops have been trying to root out remaining Hamas terrorists. As its military operations inside Gaza are still continuing, a 41-year-old Israeli colonel was killed and another officer was wounded in combat in northern Gaza on Sunday.
Today, during an encounter in northern Gaza in the Jabalia area, the commander of the 401st Brigade, Colonel Hassan Daksa, fell in combat. During the same incident, a battalion commander was seriously injured and 2 additional officers were lightly injured. The commanders were in the fields in tanks, excited to observe the area and were struck by an explosive while outside the tank.
All right, Akshay Dongre joins us from New Delhi to get us more. Akshay, help us understand the escalation in the region. We've seen how there is an escalation of airstrikes between Lebanon and Israel. Get us more. What is the latest from ground you can tell us?
Well, when it comes to this conflict, we are seeing a recurring change. So when it comes to what exactly is latest as far as the Israel-Hamas conflict is concerned, and now, in fact, Israel-Hezbollah conflict as well, there is nothing new that has come besides the already escalating tensions. The increasing number of airstrikes is new. As a matter of fact, the kind of retaliation that is coming in from Hezbollah is also new. We saw the attack, just some time back on the residence of the Prime Minister of Israel. So that was a part of the escalation. Have lost their lives as far as the operations are concerned of Hezbollah in the region. We are seeing an overall escalation, not only at one front but at multiple fronts when it comes to this conflict. So in the days to come, what we can expect is that this conflict may even spiral up as far as bringing in new parties are concerned, and perhaps even there are some ominous signs that if the escalation keeps on continuing like this, then we can also see more loss of lives in the region, at a scale that is unfathomable and unprecedented as well.
Yes, Akshay, also Israel has vowed to, to offend, to continue its offensive against the regional enemies and also shield its border and to ensure that the rivals of Israel do not regroup. How is Israel positioned with, with strikes coming in from Lebanon, with the Israel-Hamas war still continuing? How is Israel positioned?
Well, we saw, for the last 1 year, that all the strikes that have been coming in from Hezbollah or coming in from Hamas as well have largely failed because the kind of technology that Israel has is far more superior than any kind of arsenal that these two organizations have. So far, Israel is secure on that front. When it comes to the Israeli offensive capabilities, they are far more superior than anything Hezbollah or Hamas can handle. So the conflict has not been balanced when it comes to the balance of power is concerned, and that is perhaps the only reason why we are seeing such an extensive damage on the fronts of Hezbollah and Hamas, and such little damage when it comes to Israel, where people, many of them have been leading normal lives as well. However, when it comes to Hezbollah, they have been obliterated. Their top leadership has been killed recently. Hamas has lost two of its top leaders in the conflict in the last 1 year. So we can see that Israel is well secured with the support coming in directly from the United States of America when it comes to the arms and ammunition of the country.
All right, you're talking of this, but then Akshay, what do we, how do we see the war or the situation progress, from here on? Because both the sides are still unrelenting. It's more than a year, when the war started, but we still do not see any solution in sight. How do we expect the future course of action with regard to the Israel-Hamas war?
Well, Preeti, you answered the question yourself. Both the sides are unrelenting. They don't want to come to agreement. They don't want to come to terms. Perhaps they have their own agenda when it comes to continuing the war, be it Hamas or Hezbollah. So I don't think so we are going to see any kind of end to the conflict except the two parties willing to end it.
All right, so we'll have to see how the days pan out with regard to the Israel-Hamas conflict. Thank you so much, Akshay, for joining in with those inputs. All right, we also gave you updates on how electioneering is progressing in the US. And our correspondent Shubhendu is joining us from New York. Shubhendu, we've been telling our viewers about the war of words between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. But you tell us, how is the election fever there picking up? We've seen how early voting has been witnessed in some crucial states, in some regions. You tell us, what do you witness there? How is the election fever picking up?
At the heart of it, Preeti, it's a very, very tight race to the White House. And now we see the focus shifting to the swing states in particular. They were in focus for a long time, but in these last week, the focus is greatly on that. Philadelphia in particular is a state where the focus is Pennsylvania. Philadelphia is where the focus is by both sides. In fact, we see Barack Obama also putting in his weight behind Kamala Harris. There are concerns about the male voters among the black community if the entire support is going after Kamala Harris, which was earlier thought is going to take the Democrat far and wide. But whether that's happening or not, an assessment therefore came out that Barack Obama could in fact come out in greater support of Kamala Harris' campaign on the ground to a greater extent. And we see that as an important characteristic now. Those trends are coming up. The Democrats want to make sure that all sections of society, in fact, are putting their faith in Kamala Harris. But these last moment strategies also indicate towards the concerns that the parties have. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is also expanding his influence and the places from where he could get the support, even in blue states like New York, where I am at the moment, we see efforts by the Republicans, by Donald Trump to push for support.
All right, Shubhendu, we told our viewers how, Kamala Harris is seen leading nationally, but then there is a neck-to-neck contest between the two contenders in some states. Help our viewers understand the concept of swing states and to what extent can they affect the election result?
To put it simply, swing states are the states that are going to decide the outcome of the presidential elections. There is a concept of colored state and swing states, the red and blue red denoting the Republican supporting states, Preeti, and blue denoting Democrat supporting states. So we have to understand that for a leader to be able to win the US election, it also needs to win the state's support completely. There are traditionally states, for example, New York, for the past many elections, has been consistently supporting a Democrat candidate. Similarly, for California, it's been supporting a Democrat candidate. Turn to a state like Florida, from where Donald Trump comes. It's a red state. Traditionally, it has supported a Republican candidate. So in these states, a Democrat or Republicans know who's winning most likely. But there are fewer, 67 states, including states like Pennsylvania, including states like Georgia and others, where the margin of win is usually very close, which means that it could swing any way, and therefore the term swing comes into being. And therefore, there are states where one is more confident about winning, so one doesn't put in the last minute resources and time and energy there. On the other hand, the swing, which will determine the final outcome of the elections, again, Wisconsin, for example, is hugely important in that regard. So there we see in these last days and weeks of the elections, both leaders putting in their best foot as far as the swing states, therefore, are concerned. Preeti?
All right, Shubhendu, now this election comes at a time when the world, just recovered from COVID pandemic. Also, we've seen how there is, a change in the, geopolitical status given the conflict between Israel, Hamas, and the tensions in West Asia as a whole. Help us understand what is it that the voters there are looking for as they, as they expect a change of guard in the US.
Well, we have to really wait and watch what is in the voters' mind, Preeti. But yes, as you mentioned, that those very local issues, you mentioned pandemic, but perhaps those cyclones like Helene and cyclones like Milton would be more fresh in the minds of the voters. Especially, I can tell you about parts of East Coast that I'm covering. Helene had led to great devastation. Also, cyclone Milton, and in these areas in south of Southern America, in Florida, in states like North Carolina, which were very severely affected, the coastal area severely affected by Helene and Milton. There the concern is, which is going to be the candidate that can help the communities to stand up on their feet quickly and fast. What kind of resource allocation, what kind of priorities in terms of helping these communities to tackle with the immediate challenges concerned, those ride high. So in a similar way, there are different priorities that are affecting the voters. Foreign relations and developments also hugely important. Just earlier today in New York, outside of Met Museum, we saw some protesters, old senior citizens, who spoke about how they would like to support Kamala Harris because there's a Ukraine war going on, and they don't want to leave an ally alone in the conflict at such a crucial point. So we see a disparate group of motivations with the voters, immediate as well as national and international concerns that will finally determine who they're going to vote for.
All right, Shubhendu, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those inputs and details. That was our correspondent Shubhendu joining us from New York, telling us more about how the election fever there is picking up. The elections will be held on November 5th, but early voting is being held in some states in the US. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky cautions against North Korea's growing involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war by supplying Russia with military equipment. WHO certifies Egypt as malaria-free, marking the elimination of the disease dominant in the country since many decades. Marking the rescue of the largest group of migrants this year, over 230 migrants saved from a boat off Spain's Canary Islands.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued a stark warning about North Korea's growing involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war. In his nightly address, Zelensky cited satellite and video evidence showing North Korea supplying Russia with military equipment and even preparing soldiers for deployment. The escalation has sparked alarm across the West. Germany, France and other nations voiced concerns after South Korea's spy agency revealed that North Korea has sent 1,500 special forces to Russia's Far East for training, possibly for combat. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin acknowledged the potential threat, while NATO's Mark Rutte noted no evidence of North Korean presence yet. Zelensky stressed that increased North Korean participation could only be harmful to everyone.
I am grateful to those leaders and representatives of states who do not close their eyes and speak frankly about this cooperation for the sake of a larger war. We expect a normal, honest, strong reaction from our partners on this. Unfortunately, instability and threats can significantly increase after North Korea becomes trained for modern warfare. If the world remains silent now, we have to engage soldiers from North Korea on the front line in the same way. We have to defend ourselves from Iranian drones. This will certainly benefit no one in the world and only prolong the war.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dismissed recent U.S. calls for nuclear talks without preconditions as a deception. In an interview with Argumente I Facti, Lavrov criticized the Biden administration's statement, arguing it allows Washington to label Russia an enemy while pushing for strategic arms discussions. Lavrov suggested that the U.S.'s ultimate aim is Russia's strategic defeat on the battlefield. His comments followed the White House's message to a Japanese peace group reaffirming readiness for nuclear talks with Russia, China and North Korea. Meanwhile, he noted that Moscow is closely watching the U.S. election campaign between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Lavrov emphasized that Russia is open to dialogue with any future U.S. administration, but only under conditions of mutual respect. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Sunday thanked UAE President for his help in prisoner exchanges with Ukraine. Putin on Sunday welcomed his UAE counterpart, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, for an informal dinner at his residence ahead of the BRICS summit in Kazan. Moscow and Kyiv on Friday announced that they had swapped 95 prisoners each following the negotiations led directly by the UAE. The official talks between the two presidents is scheduled for today, where they are expected to discuss several issues, including the West Asia crisis. Moldovans headed to the polls on Sunday to vote in the presidential election and a referendum on whether the country should join the European Union. Under the country's constitution, a candidate must win an absolute majority to be elected as president. Otherwise, the two candidates with the most votes proceed to a runoff. A possible runoff is slated to be held on November 3rd. 11 candidates are competing for the presidency, but two have emerged as frontrunners. Maya Sandu, the current pro-European president, is seeking re-election, promising to bring Moldova closer to the EU. Her main rival is former Prosecutor General Alexander Stoianoglu, who is backed by the Party of Socialists. Besides choosing a president, Moldovans are also casting their votes in a referendum on whether the goal of joining the EU should be enshrined in the country's constitution. A US and a Canadian warship have passed through waters separating Taiwan and China. It comes a week after Beijing held large-scale military drills in the sensitive passage. In a statement, US Navy's 7th Fleet said that Higgins and Vancouver's transit through the Taiwan Strait demonstrated the United States and Canada's commitment to upholding freedom of navigation for all nations as a principle. China said on Monday that the US and Canadian actions had disrupted peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. Beijing sent a record number of military aircraft as well as warships and Coast Guard vessels to encircle Taiwan on October 14th in the 4th round of major drills in just over 2 years. Over 230 migrants were rescued from one wooden boat on Sunday in seas off Spain's Canary Islands. 14 women and 3 children were also found in the same boat, which contained a total of 231 people. It is the largest number of people to be rescued from the same boat off the island of Gran Canaria this year, marking a rise of 39.7% from the same period last year. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres addressed the world's biggest nature protection conference in Colombia on Sunday. In a video address in the conference, Guterres urged significant investment in a fund created to safeguard Earth's biodiversity. Guterres added, destroying nature increases conflict, hunger and disease, fuels poverty and slashes GDP. Colombian President Gustavo Petro also attended Sunday's ceremonial event. The meeting, which officially opens on Monday, had a ceremonial kickoff with Cali on high alert after threats from a guerrilla group. The conference was aided by UN and US security personnel. About 12,000 delegates from nearly 200 countries were due to attend the 16th conference of the parties to the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, running until November 1st. The World Health Organization certifies Egypt as malaria-free, marking the elimination of a disease that had been present in the country since ancient times. Egypt's journey to eradication involved decades of dedicated efforts, including enhanced surveillance, vector control measures, and robust healthcare interventions. The WHO grants certification to countries that have proven beyond reasonable doubt that the chain of indigenous malaria transmission ends. The status had been granted to a total of 44 countries and 1 territory globally, the WHO said in a statement. Cuba's electrical grid collapsed again on Sunday, the 4th such failure in 48 hours, as a looming hurricane threatened to wreak further havoc on the island. Cuba earlier on Sunday had said that it was making headway restoring service after multiple false starts, though millions of people remained without electricity more than 2 days after the grid's initial collapse. Hurricane Oscar bore down on the Caribbean island, bringing strong winds and rain to northeastern Cuba and threatening to further complicate the government's efforts to re-establish service. Cuba's Meteorological Survey warned of an extremely dangerous situation in eastern Cuba. The entire region was largely without electricity or communication ahead of the storm. Up next, a quick look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. Hundreds of people took part in a Christmas charity run in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil on Sunday to raise money to fight hunger among poor Brazilian families. In the 2024 edition, 2,000 runners raised funds to help families with food baskets. The race was organized by the NGO Citizen Action, which has carried out the event yearly since 1993. Streets of Mexico City were overrun with the undead as zombie enthusiasts flooded the streets for the city's annual zombie walk. Dressed in ghoulish costumes and elaborate makeup, the undead horde gathered downtown and creeped out passerbys in the street. Also, entire families participated in the event annually, with children often dressed up in the costumes. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, aiming to ring in significant benefits to the economy, Maldives set to roll out India's UPI soon. We also tell you ahead how Uran scheme revolutionized the aviation sector in the country. Stay with us for a quick glimpse into the preparations to usher in the Festival of Lights in Ayodhya.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories now. As US presidential fight rages on, Harris accuses Trump of demeaning the office of the president, while Trump keeps focus on illegal immigration. Israel begins bombing Hezbollah's banks and other financial infrastructure as Hezbollah targets the adversary's military bases. And world's biggest nature protection conference begins in Colombian city of Cali. UN chief urges investment to safeguard Earth's biodiversity. And in sports, New Zealand lifts Maiden ICC Women's T20 World Cup title, beats South Africa by 32 runs. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Russia to attend the 16th BRICS summit on 22nd and 23rd of October. The summit, themed Strengthening Multilateralism for Just Global Development and Security, will provide an important platform for leaders to discuss key global issues. The summit will offer a valuable opportunity to assess the progress of initiatives launched by BRICS and to identify potential areas for future collaboration. During his visit, the Prime Minister is also expected to hold bilateral meetings with his counterparts from BRICS member countries and invited leaders in Kazan. While Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has cancelled his trip to Russia following medical advice after hurting his head in an accident at home. In a statement, the presidential office said Lula will now participate in the BRICS meeting via video conference. The diplomatic forum, founded 15 years ago by major emerging markets Brazil, Russia, India, China, has since expanded to include South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and the UAE. The 2024 BRICS summit is being hosted by Russia in the city of Kazan, where the concept of multipolarity will take center stage in discussions between member nations. Jessica Taneja of DD India reports from the city's cultural center, which highlights Kazan's unique identity as a symbol of cultural diversity and historical significance.
As Russia's most multicultural city, Kazan is home to over 150 nationalities, symbolizing peaceful coexistence among various cultures, ethnic groups and religions. The diversity reflects the broader values of BRICS, where nations from different parts of the world will come together to address common challenges. The city stands as a powerful symbol of unity amidst diversity, showcasing Russia's affluence and its unique blend of Eastern and Western influences. A notable landmark in Kazan is the Kul Sharif Mosque, which holds deep historical and cultural significance. Originally built during the time of Kazan Khanate, the mosque was destroyed in 1552 but later reconstructed to honor its legacy. Built by Muslim cleric Kul Sharif many centuries ago, this historic and architectural ensemble is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In fact, this is one of the largest mosques in Europe, and it houses some of the most ancient scriptures that we have seen so far. The 1,000-year-old Kazan Kremlin, where the mosque is located, continues to be a major center for Tatar culture and spiritual life within Russia. Its historical importance as the bridge between cultures and its status as a center of multiculturalism enhance its role as the host city for BRICS Summit. Kazan was selected not only because of its multicultural identity, but also due to its symbolic representation of multipolarity and peaceful coexistence. The city's blend of Eastern and Western influences, coupled with history of harmonious inter-ethnic and inter-religious relations, its selection underscores the city's role as a center of dialogue between diverse nations and as a symbol of cooperation and understanding across cultures. Jessica Taneja with video journalist Shailendra Chauhan for DD India.
Taneja is joining us from Kazan, Russia. Jessica, this is the 16th BRICS summit, which Russia will be hosting on October 22nd and 23rd. Get us more as to what is on the agenda.
That's correct. This BRICS summit is, of course, important, and you see the participation from various leaders, but barring the Brazilian counterpart, De Silva, who's of course on a medical advice and won't be here. But the agenda particularly would focus on, the kind of reforms that the BRICS nations have been sort of seeking for the longest time and ever since its inception. Now, the BRICS group has also expanded, but that expansion, of course, leads to various different outcomes. But the agenda particularly would focus on economic cooperation, political cooperation, and also talk about security, as the high-level delegation of various heads of state will be here. And that is important to see that what exactly comes out of that entire meeting. But particularly when you talk about the financial system that is in place, something that the BRICS nations have been talking about, trading in local currencies to an extent, no talks of de-dollarization this time around, a concept that has faded away, and in fact did get much of the clarity from the Indian side as well, that it is not something that they will continue to delve on. So talking about this particular summit's agenda, look at the backdrop of how the regional and key issues have developed, and also the global issues and how it affects the BRICS nations, particularly the global south. Look at the South-South cooperation, which currently also binds the BRICS nation groups, BRICS nations. So, the all-encompassing agenda here would be how do these, how do these nations also come together and bring in certain reforms that would benefit their economy, would benefit their commerce, and certainly move ahead, but not completely move away from the Western architecture at this point, but at the same time, to an extent, reduce dependency on dollar, and that varies among nations. So we'll have to see as to how this entire, the entire summit and the declaration, what exactly comes out of that. But one thing is certain, security cooperation remains a dominant part of the BRICS nations as well.
All right, so that was about what is to be taken up on the agenda. But then we will also see, new nations in attendance at the BRICS forum. Help us understand the significance of this expansion, and also what is it that the new members, are bringing with them through their participation.
If you'd recall earlier this year, in fact, on January 1st, we saw the addition of 5 member nations to BRICS. That was Egypt, Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, as well. So the addition of these nations certainly, would boost the economic ties between the nations, especially when these countries, most of them big oil producers of the world, OPEC countries joining in. It certainly enhances the entire appeal of the BRICS nations. But apart from being the oil behemoths that they are, also expecting, the expectations from nations would be very different this time around. And with United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt in the fold, you could expect much momentum at least, and strengthening of the cooperation between BRICS member nations. Remember, it is a 5-nation group. It is now going to be BRICS Plus. We don't know with the nomenclature and how that goes, but so far the anticipation is that the oil behemoths would bring that kind of force that currently the BRICS nations would benefit from.
All right, Jessica, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details. All right, turning focus to other updates, Maldives has decided to introduce India's unified payment interface. President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu's office said that the move is expected to bring significant benefits to the Maldivian economy, including increased financial inclusion, improved efficiency in financial transactions, and enhanced digital infrastructure. Also, the president has decided to set up a consortium for the same. He also suggested that banks, telecom companies, state-owned companies and fintech companies operating in the country should be included in the consortium. India's financial interface is operational in several international locations including UAE, Sri Lanka, France, Malaysia, Singapore, Nepal, UK and Mauritius. In Jammu and Kashmir, a joint team neutralized one heavily armed terrorist and recovered arms and ammunition and other warlike stores from the encounter site in Baramulla district. Ahead of this, Indian Army and police launched a joint anti-infiltration operation along LOC in Uri based on regional intelligence inputs regarding the likely infiltration bid. Alert troops spotted suspicious activity and challenged, which resulted in terrorists opening indiscriminate fire. Vigilant troops responded with effective fire while the operation is still in progress. At least 6 laborers were killed in a terror attack in Gagangir area of Gandarbal district on Sunday evening. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah condemned the attack, calling it a dastardly and cowardly attack on non-local laborers. India's Union Minister Amit Shah paid homage to the martyrs on Police Commemoration Day at National Police Memorial, New Delhi, to commemorate the police officers who have sacrificed their lives in course of service. In the remembrance of the 10 valiant policemen who laid down their lives in an ambush laid by heavily armed Chinese troops at Hot Springs, Ladakh, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi dedicated National Police Memorial in New Delhi to the nation on Police Commemoration Day, honoring the brave hearts who protect the citizens of the country and are responsible for enforcement of law and order. Police Commemoration Day is also observed as Martyrs' Day in all police forces across India. India's aviation sector took a giant, significant leap forward with the launch of the UDAN scheme in 2016. Aimed at democratizing air travel, UDAN focuses on connecting underserved and remote regions, ensuring that affordable flights are within the reach for every Indian, revolutionizing regional connectivity. The Ministry of Civil Aviation has set an ambitious target to operationalize 100 underserved airports and open 1,000 new air routes. With various iterations over the years, the UDAN scheme has connected even the remotest parts of the country, making air travel a reality across India.
The UDAN scheme, a revolution in India's aviation sector. In 2016, the Indian government launched the National Civil Aviation Policy with a groundbreaking initiative. UDAN. The scheme was launched on October 21st, 2016 with a vision to make air travel accessible to every citizen following the slogan Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. It aimed to improve aviation infrastructure and air connectivity, especially in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. The first UDAN flight took off on April 27, 2017, marking a historic moment in Indian aviation.
What UDAN scheme has done, not just for connecting people, it has also helped to build the aviation sector and industry in the country. Today, if you look at the number of airlines that operate under the UDAN scheme, leave aside the bigger airlines which we are all familiar with. We have airlines which operate either fully on the under the UDAN scheme or to a large extent under the UDAN scheme. And these are all recent. In some ways, you could say this is creating the environment for these small operators to come, start up type of airlines to come up and start operating, and then with the ambition of growing bigger as time goes by.
The Ministry of Civil Aviation sets an ambitious target, operationalize 100 underserved airports and open 1,000 new air routes. With various iterations over the years, the UDAN scheme has connected even the remotest part of India, making air travel a reality across the country.
I have travelled from Hubli to Bangalore and Bangalore to Hubli once using the UDAN scheme. And personally for my city, Hubballi, it has benefited, and many business tycoons have come here, and many business people from Hubballi, which is also known as Chota Mumbai, have gone to other cities, and it has increased the ease of doing business.
Over 14 million passengers have benefited, with more than 280,000 flights operating under the scheme. As a rising pillar of global aviation ecosystem, India is on track to become a major aviation hub by the end of this decade. Today, 601 routes are operational, connecting airports across the country. The UDAN scheme has transformed India's aviation sector, bridging regional gaps and making air travel accessible to millions of Indians. UDAN truly soars high for India's common citizens. With camera person Ravi, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. In West Bengal, agitating junior doctors along with senior doctors have given a call for strike to the state government if their demands are not fulfilled. The doctors are seeking justice for their deceased colleague at RG Kar Medical College and Hospital, claiming that the doctors were not against the interest of the people. He said that they had withdrawn their earlier seized work for the same. Multi-agency probe is underway to determine the reason behind the strong blast that ripped through the wall of a CRPF school in Delhi's Rohini on Sunday. While no one was hurt in the incident, the IED blast ripped through the wall of the school and caused some damage to nearby shops and cars. The national capital's air quality, which is currently in the poor category, is likely to deteriorate to very poor between Monday and Wednesday, while several factors contribute to the air pollution in Delhi. Stubble burning in neighbouring states such as Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh is considered to be a major cause behind it. The Chief Secretary of the Eastern Indian state of Odisha, Manoj Ahuja, held a review meeting in view of Cyclone Dana and the state government's preparedness on the same. He further issued an advisory to all district collectors to ensure zero casualty. Preparations are underway in Uttar Pradesh's Ayodhya for the Deepotsav festival. The authorities plan to light over 2.5 million lamps during Diwali. A viewing gallery is being constructed at Ram Ki Pedi for the attendees, which will be ready before the event. Last year, lamps were lit on 51 ghats, but this year, the plan is to light lamps on 55 ghats. A quick break ahead, but after the break, in cricket, New Zealand's Susie Bates becomes the most capped player in women's international cricket. World number 13, Tommy Paul, wins the Stockholm Open for a second time on Sunday. Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you updates from the world of sports now. All-rounder Emilia Kerr starred with a bat and ball as New Zealand beat South Africa by 32 runs to lift their maiden Women's 2020 World Cup on Sunday after runners-up finishes in 2009 and 2010. New Zealand posted an impressive total of 158 runs, which is the second highest in a Women's T20 World Cup final, scoring 73 runs in the last 6 overs. Meanwhile, South Africa managed only 126 for 9 in their 20 overs, with captain Laura Volwart top scoring for the Proteas with 33 runs off 27 balls. South Africa won the toss and chose to bowl, striking early as Georgia Plummer was dismissed for 9 in the second over. Former New Zealand captain Susie Bates on Sunday became the most capped player in women's international cricket when she was named in the playing 11 for her side's T20 World Cup summit clash. The final clash was Susie's 334th outing in the Kiwis kit. The 37-year-old had made her international debut back in 2006 in an ODI against India at Lincoln. The venue eventually turned out to be her happy hunting ground, with her going on to score 843 runs in the women ODIs at the venue, which is the most by a cricketer in the ODI format in the stadium. Bates also owns a record of scoring the most runs in the shortest format. In fact, she is the only cricketer to cross the 4,500 run mark. India's Harmanpreet Kaur is at the second position and she has a deficit of close to 1,000 runs. Spin bowling all-rounder Washington Sundar has been added to the Indian squad for the upcoming second and third tests against New Zealand. The selectors have added Washington to the team as its 16th member without making any change to the squad. The second test is scheduled to start in Pune on October 24th. Washington has been part of India's white ball squads in the recent months but has not played test cricket since March 2021. Recently, Sundar scored a century for Tamil Nadu in Ranji Trophy match against Delhi. Hockey India has named a 22-member men's team for the upcoming bilateral series against reigning world champions Germany. The two-match series will be played in New Delhi on 23rd and 24th of October. The Indian team will be led by Harmanpreet Singh, while Vivek Sagar Prasad will be the vice-captain. Midfielder Hardik Singh has been missed out as he continues to recover from an injury sustained during the Paris Olympic Games. Mandeep Singh, who was rested for the Asian Champions Trophy, has returned to the forward line. Recently, India defeated China to clinch the Asian Champions Trophy. Tommy Paul capped a dominant week by winning the Stockholm Open for a second time on Sunday. The American had not dropped a set this week and he continued the momentum to beat Grigor Dimitrov for 6-4, 6-3 in the 85-minute final. It was a third tour-level trophy for the year for Paul after his victories at the Dallas Open and Queen's Club. His only previous ATP title before the year was in Stockholm in 2021. Stockholm continued to prove mixed fortunes for Dimitrov. The Bulgarian won the tournament in 2013 but lost in the final the following year as well as in 2017. Alright, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. You can download the respective QR codes on your screens. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us at In Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.